evening councillors and officers, and to those who are at home might be watching tonight's live stream. Welcome to the March Council meeting of Corangamite Shire. We can begin with the prayer, please, councillors. We ask for guidance and blessing on this council. May the true needs and well-being of our communities be our concern. Help us who serve as leaders to remember that all our decisions are made in the best interests of the people, culture and environment of the Corangamite Shire. Amen. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land around Corangamite Shire, the Eastern Mar and Wanawara people. We pay our respects to all Aboriginal elders and peoples, past and present. I introduce councillors and staff around the table this evening. We have Deputy Mayor Geraldine Kennedy, Councillor Joe Beard, Councillor Jamie Vogels, Councillor Kate Macon, Councillor Laurie Hickey, and Councillor Nick Cole. Our CEO, Andrew Mason. Our Director of Works and Services, Brooke Love. Director of Sustainable Development, Ms Justine Lindley. Mr David Ray, our Director of Corporate and Community Services, and our Governance Coordinator, James Plozza. Mr CEO, we have no apologies this evening. Are there any declaration of conflict of interest?
Madam Mayor, there's been no declarations of conflict of interest.
Thank you. Councillors, the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of February have been circulated. Would someone like to move those minutes, please? Councillor Macon, seconded by Councillor Cole. No questions? All in favour? That's carried. Mr CEO, we have no deputations or presentations prior to this meeting.
We've had no requests, no.
Thank you. Move straight into the agenda, councillors, on committee report. 7.1 is the Audit and Risk Committee Biennial Report to Council, March 2022. Mr Ray, can you introduce this item, please?
Mayor, thank you, and through you, the report is provided as a requirement under the Local Government Act 2020. As required, 2 reports every 6 months are required to be tabled by the committee to council. The report covers 2 meetings during that period. Particular interest would be the election of a new chairperson at the December meeting, Ms Philippa D. And the committee also made 2 recommendations to council during that period, so the appointment of AFS and Associates as internal auditors, and the adoption of 3 policies that have been reviewed, and they will be presented to the April meeting. The recommendation is to receive the report.
Thank you, Mr Ray. Councillors, somebody happy to move that recommendation? Councillor Kennedy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Macon, Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, absolutely happy to receive the Biennial Audit and Risk Committee report. We are really very fortunate to have some very experienced people sitting on the Audit and Risk Committee who have really very relevant qualifications for the role that they play, and we do benefit from excellent advice. There is really clear commitment to the responsibilities of the committee, and I have confidence in the oversight provided by the members and the support of our internal and external auditors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Macon.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. During the review period, Council's Audit and Risk Committee considered a broad range of issues, including the appointment of the new chairperson, who is Miss Philippa D. I'd like to thank the outgoing chairperson, Colin Hayman, for all his services to the Audit and Risk Committee. While in the chair role, he's done well to steer the committee in such a great way. I concur with Councillor Kennedy's remarks, saying that we feel quite privileged, and the Audit Committee have a great understanding of what's going on, and we as councillors have great knowledge and have great faith in them, so whatever they present to us, we know it's been very well looked at and diligence. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Macon. Is there anything further, councillors? I'll put it to a vote. All in favour? That's carried. On to planning reports, item 8.1. Planning permit application P 2021 007, use and development of land for domestic animal husbandry, dog breeding at 22 Pett Street, Skipton. And this item was previously discussed last month. Ms Lindley, would you like to introduce this item before we lift it off the table?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this item is to consider a planning permit application for the use and development of land for domestic animal husbandry, dog breeding, at number 22 Pett Street, Skipton. At the 22nd of February council meeting, the application was listed for consideration, and the officer's recommendation was that council issue a notice of decision to grant a permit subject to extensive conditions. The officer's report and recommendation remain unchanged and are replicated in full in the agenda papers. At last month's meeting, the applicant also made a presentation on the matter, and following the introduction of the item, a motion to refuse the application was moved by Councillor Vogels and seconded by Councillor Canady. That motion is also printed in the agenda papers. The procedural motion was further moved by Councillor Beard and seconded by Councillor Hickey that the matter lay on the table, effectively deferring a decision on the application until this council meeting. Therefore, subject to councillors agreeing to lift the matter from the table, the application is now before you for determination. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Lindley. Councillors, it's a procedural motion that the matter of the planning permit, use and development of land for domestic animal husbandry, dog breeding be lifted from the table. Could someone move that motion, please? Councillor Hickey, do I have a seconder? Councillor Macon. The vote, all in favour? That's carried. The motion, as moved by Councillor Vogels and seconded by Councillor Canady, is now the motion under discussion. Councillor Vogels, would you like to speak to your motion?
If I could withdraw the motion, please, Madam Mayor.
Motion to withdraw. Councillor Canady is the seconder. Are you happy to withdraw?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, the motion is to withdraw. Councillors, we'll put that to a vote. All in favour? It's carried. Okay, councillors, I'm in your hands. Would you like to move a recommendation and your motion? Councillor Cole.
I'd like to move that the motion be adopted as is written, agreeing that we grant the permit subject to all the conditions and points that are listed in the motion. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. So you're moving that the officer's recommendation is on the motion?
Yes.
Yep, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hickey. Councillor Cole, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's quite a few. There's been quite a few objections, and there's quite a few permit conditions on this granting of this application, and I believe it's safe to go ahead, so to speak. So I'm quite happy to move that. There's a lot of rules and regulations about all this. So, yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, whilst this is not a popular permit, I think there's significant conditions being imposed throughout the permit application that would mean that we have, as a council, good responsibility to be able to make sure that the conditions are met and met well. So I would urge people urge my councillors to vote in favour of this and make sure that we get some regulation around the planning permit.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillors, any further comments? Oh, sorry, Councillor Beard and Councillor Vogels.
Oh, sorry. Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, this was a tough one, and I can appreciate why we had to defer this decision to base ourselves to, I guess to equip ourselves with some further information, which I thank the planning department, the officers for providing us with the answers. My particular one was around obviously more information around the code of practice and with the Dog Breeding Association. I can't say, and I'll be honest, the applicant is with us here tonight. I don't have great confidence that these conditions will still oversee the impact that obviously the objectors have had. But I think the fact that we haven't had any conditions until now, that it has been it's been a practice that's been occurring without any oversight. I think now that we have conditions, at least we can have some kind of enforcement. I think the fact that the other residents in Pett Street have acknowledged their concerns around site management, noise, odour. The big one for me was the community safety, which I hope the applicant has taken on board and not to be taken lightly, and that knowing that our staff at the Shire can hopefully have a bit more, a bit more leeway now over enforcing those conditions now that we've got them in place. So assuming that they'll be put in place here tonight. It hasn't been a comfortable one for me. I really didn't have all the answers at the last council meeting, but I'm comfortable now knowing that the code of practice is a bit clearer in my mind, and I feel my fellow councillors are the same. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Bowles.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor, and I agree on parts with everyone and with the officers' recommendation and stuff, but in my mind, being within the township of Skipton, the area is largely for people wishing to enjoy a rural lifestyle, and as a rural shire with large areas of agricultural and farmland, we need to protect that land from inappropriate development, but we also need to protect the amenity of our small townships and the people who live in the towns, on the edge of towns, and this is why I won't be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Canadian.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I like Councillor Beard. I actually found I needed to think long and hard on this one, and found it quite a difficult decision to come to. The thing is that this needs to be a good outcome for the community, and that's the thing that I'm most concerned with. And that is one of the reasons that the permit conditions are applied, so that they are there to address the concerns of neighbours and the community, and to ensure that amenity impacts and environmental impacts are managed. And so I think it's extremely important that that does occur. If the permit is granted, it actually does become a legal document and will set the conditions and requirements for the permit applicant to adhere to. It's enforceable, and a key to this permit leading to a sustainable outcome is taking responsibility to comply with the conditions and to manage the use. Any breach or non-compliance will activate further enforcement and regulation by the council planning and local laws staff. So I feel like granting a permit will afford an onus of compliance on the applicant that hasn't existed in the past, and I think that the granting of a permit will lead to a better outcome for the community, and that obviously is contingent on the conditions being respected. So I do think the way forward is to grant the permit, and I think the conditions are a very important component of that.
Thank you, Councillor Canadian. Councillors, is there anything further? Councillor Cole, you happy for me to put it to a vote? Thank you. That's the vote. Councillors, all in favour? Against? Carried. Item 8.2, Cobden Solar Farm Ministerial Planning Permit Application, PA 2101345, Corangamite Shire submission. Ms. Lindley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council has made recent submissions to the State Government regarding renewable energy planning and development in response to the Renewable Energy Zone Development Plan Direction Paper, the proposed Bukar Solar Farm and Bostock's Creek Solar Farm. This report presents a draft submission consistent with Council's priorities, themes and issues to the planning permit application for the Cobden Solar Farm. We note that the Minister for Planning is the responsible authority for energy generation facilities and utility installations with an installed capacity of 1 megawatt or greater, and this is what is the case with the proposed Cobden Solar Farm. The application seeks the Minister's approval for the use and development of land for a 5 megawatt solar energy facility and associated infrastructure and utility installations. The facility will be developed within a 22.26 hectare site which has frontage to the Cobden South Eklund Road and the Cobden Terang Road, and will connect to the adjacent power core 22 kV distribution transmission line. I won't go through all of the details of the proposal. Suffice to say, it also includes a battery energy storage system and the creation of new site access points to the Cobden South Eckland Road and to emergency access points from the Cobden to Rang Road, together with significant underground and above ground power line extensions. There will be a series of underground power line connections to central infrastructure and perimeter and security fencing. Our draft submission to the application seeks to address both key strategic issues as well as project-specific issues, and the themes considered in our submission include the role of new energy in the Shire, our strategic focus with agricultural and primary production industries as priority sectors, state and regional land use planning, community engagement, or lack thereof in this instance, the cumulative impact of transmission infrastructure and renewable energy developments on our community, landscape and visual impact, fire risk, hydrology and drainage, road and traffic management, the impact on the Cobden aerodrome, project decommissioning and community benefit funds. The full draft submission is included in the agenda attachments for Council's consideration. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Emily. Councillors, as a recommendation, authorise the CEO to make this submission to the Minister for Planning. Someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Canady, do I have a seconder? Councillor Aiken. Councillor Canady.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think actually this is a really good submission. It covers a lot of issues that are related to renewable projects that are emerging in our region. There is an enormous amount of prospecting from wind and solar companies in the southwest, and starting to sort of move into Corangamite more so. The submission raises quite a number of issues with the Planning Minister related to these projects and strategic planning in the Shire. It highlights the real need for the state government to undertake a detailed review and analysis of renewable energy zones, and to identify strategically where renewable energy developments are suitable, of the areas, the zones that they are suitable for. It should involve key stakeholders, including the agricultural industry, as agriculture is our number one industry in Corangamite and very important here, and should take account of areas of strategic agricultural importance in the state of Victoria. Currently we are experiencing very ad hoc renewable development in the southwest that is mostly influenced by proximity to the grid. We are seeing a lot of cumulative impact, and I think, with the knowledge that we have of some projects that are in the pipeline, that we're going to see a lot more of that. And we're experiencing fragmentation and removal of productive farming land. This submission also notes the failures on the part of the applicant for the Cobden Solar Farm to properly address a number of issues that have potential for significant landscape and community impact. They lacked proper broad community engagement, and this is most disappointing and suggests a disregard for our communities, our landscape and the social licence that we are entitled to. So I'm pleased to support the recommendation here, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Canady. Councillor Macon.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. By all means, we are not against renewables or anything else, but it's where they're being put and how the Minister is just accepting where they need to go without any planning or forefront knowledge. So we're a very high agriculture area, and taking away great land of ours is not fantastic for the community or anyone else involved in the Shire. I would say also that The community consultation has been quite poor with everyone involved. There needs to be a better community consultation. If you get the community involved from the outset, well, you're more likely to have a better outcome at the end. And this has not happened at all with all these plannings. So I encourage this to be done much better and in greater detail. Also, recognising the estimated cost of the project is $6 million and the ongoing revenue generated for the expected project life of 30 years, the submission encourages the applicant to establish a community benefit program to ensure the project outcomes are beneficial and long-lasting within the community in Corangamite Shire. There's also the fire risk assessment. This is an important step in the planning of the renewable energy projects. And it helps provide the community and the local CFA brigades and other emergency services with greater level of confidence that the issues have comprehensively been addressed. So I would ask the Minister of Planning to just to have a bit more of a think about where they're putting them, and perhaps to have a bit more of a plan that everyone within the Shire and within Victoria have an understanding where renewables need to go, because at the moment there is not that plan there, and we definitely need that to happen. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Maker. Councillors? Is there anything further? Councillor Beard.
You knew I had to say something, didn't you, Madam Mayor? Been very patient. Thank you, and through you, it's interesting. This isn't the first time we've had to come and sit about putting in a submission for a renewable planning project just like this, and I feel like it's deja vu. And every time I say, look, we're not against renewable energy, but I think that's starting to wear thin for me. This state government have a net zero emissions target. We heard it in person only a couple of weeks ago when we were down in Parliament, and I feel like it's coming at what cost? As we've always said that we're not against renewable energy, which we're not, but there has to be some kind of consideration to what this is happening or what's it doing to our regional rural areas, in particular our productive farming land, which, as Deputy Mayor just mentioned, it's fragmenting that land. There's such this ad hoc placement of whether it be wind or solar. There's no strategic plan from the state government, and it is seriously wearing really thin on our communities, and it's kind of like, where is it going to stop? So this to me is very similar to the letter that we submitted for the solar farm just out at Bostocks Creek, and obviously we've got we're aware of a wind turbine project not far from where this solar farm is expected to potentially go as well. It's annoyed me, and I will say that there has been hardly any community engagement, only the stuff that had to be done, which I don't think is good, because how do they expect to have a good working social relationship with a community if they're not prepared to engage with them right from the start? Surely they'd be starting to get some kind of understanding and learning from that now. Only a few days ago, on the 17th of March, we had the St Patrick's Day anniversary 4 years ago, and this area that this is expected to be going in is exactly where those fires ripped through. To not even listen to our planning department under some advice to do better bushfire risk assessment work, that was totally disregarded. I'm really disappointed about that. To not even liaise with our staff around the Municipal Emergency Planning Committee, what they think about it, and also do the risk assessment in our Municipal Emergency Management Plan. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me that they aren't things that that they should automatically be going to. Our local brigades, when it comes to the CFA, I know they've obviously gone to them around as a reference to the renewable energy guidelines, but they haven't even spoke to the local brigades, who, as we've mentioned in previous submissions, they're not trained to fight industrial fires. They're volunteers, and then so the impact on them is significant that they're not even being consulted with. So I do have a problem with that. I have a problem with the fact that there's no community fund that's been acknowledged, and when you look at the price of the cost of these projects, it seems ridiculous they actually wouldn't look at that. It seems to be that every other project they put that in place. So I don't know why they've missed their opportunity with that, and again, that is another way of bringing the community along for that social relationship to coexist. I guess I probably wanted to mention again too that renewable energy isn't our number one industry. It never has been. We have a very a good relationship with our gas industry, and it's still got a lot of years ahead of it with that yet. But agriculture, again, is our number one industry, and yet I feel like that's been really compromised. And I don't think we can stress enough to the Planning Minister that they really need to pull their act and actually start being more strategic around where they're going to be putting these facilities. I had a question either for you, Ms Lindley, or for you, Mr CEO, around the letters we're putting in. Are we actually receiving any responses from these? Are we doing this as a tick the box, or can we actually get some response so we actually feel like what we're doing is actually helping on behalf of our communities?
So through you, Madam Mayor, we would typically get a response, but it won't be a detailed response. It will be largely acknowledgement of the issues. We wouldn't typically be getting a detailed response, but I do have confidence that there is consideration by the state bureaucrats who are preparing advice to the Minister that they are looking at it and giving it consideration.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Hickey.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And look, I'd also like to implore that the Minister read the submission that's been prepared with good diligence, with consideration to numerous aspects of the proposal. But I'll also say that in the south part of Australia we have some of the best intensive agricultural farming land available, and if we continue to encroach on that with the likes of solar panels, for example, it's really going to have a marked impact on our production and our way that we're able to supply markets of demand across Australia and indeed across the world. So I would certainly ask the Minister to read the submission with care. It's a relatively small development of 222 hectares. However, that is significant in a lot of intensive areas. So thanks for the opportunity, and I hope that this submission gets read well.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillors, anything further? Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm a bit the same with everyone else. One of my major beefs with the whole thing is the industrialisation of the landscape that we are having to put up with. I know there was a push a few years ago for lakes and craters tourism along the west, through the Western District, the hinterland of the Gold Coast, the Great Ocean Road. We're just becoming solar farm everywhere, and not solar farm, wind farm turbines everywhere that are sticking up like hairs on a dog's back, and solar farms coming in. It really is, it's detracting now from the hills and the lakes around the district. One thing I've always noted in travelling to Melbourne, the Werribee Plains is a pretty ordinary block of land. I thought good spot for a solar farm and a wind turbine farm, and also Port Phillip Bay, plenty of room out there to put wind turbines and things. But and they're nice and close to Melbourne, so you wouldn't get the voltage drop or anything else. However, it'll probably end up in it. The other thing we're getting, we also, with this infrastructure that we get, we also have the transmission lines going across and through our farming area, as has been noted, causing problems on total fire ban days, etc. I wish us best of luck with this.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillors, we're finished up with the motion to a vote. All in favour? Carried. Item 9.1, Officers' Report. Item 9 is the Officers' Report. 9.1 is the Gender Equity Action Plan. Ms. Lindley.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. A diversity of items tonight. The Gender Equality Act 2020 commenced on the 31st of March 2021. Council is a defined entity and is required under the Act to submit a Gender Equality Action Plan by the 31st of March this year. The action plan must include the results for workplace gender audit, plus strategies and measures to improve gender equality in the workplace based on the results of this audit. In 2021, a Gender Equality Advisory Group was formed to assist in the preparation and implementation of the first Corangamite Action Plan. The advisory group comprises staff from across the organisation, and I'm fortunate enough to be the current chair. A draft of the action plan, which covers a 4-year period, has been prepared and been circulated to councillors under separate cover. The Gender Equality Commissioner recommends that defined entities like council do not publish their plans until they have received confirmation that the plan complies with the Act. While the Corangamite Gender Equality Action Plan is for the workforce of the council as an organisation, it is acknowledged that many of the actions and strategies will have influence in the broader community. The plan takes into account the specific circumstances at Corangamite and seeks to address the issues raised in the data by staff. This includes reviewing and improving our employment practices, encouraging employment of all genders in non-traditional roles, providing leadership training for women, and advocating for state and federal government to adequately fund services that employ people in people support and service roles such as early years and community care. It is proposed that councillors note the report and authorise the CEO to finalise the report, the action plan, and submit to the Commissioner by the 31st of March. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Lindley. Councillors, recommendation? Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Beard, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hickey. Councillor Beard.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I was hoping someone else was going to move that one, but that's okay. I have no problem in supporting the recommendation for this one. It's super important, not only for us as individuals, but more importantly as an organisation, that we have such a plan in place. I mean, we know, we all think that we're invincible as organisations and that things like this only happen when you hear about it or read about it, but unfortunately inequality does happen in every organisation. So I think knowing that there was legislation in place and that we had to have a plan and have that put in place and have that put forward, I think it's been a great thing for the organisation, and the fact that a group have come together to be instrumental in drafting that plan. I have the utmost respect for both men and women, and I've always had that, and that everybody should be treated equally, no matter who they are or where they come from or what gender they are. And I think this just once again backs up how serious we are at Corangamite Shire about supporting everybody. So thank you, as I said before, to the group that have got us to this point. Appreciate that, and it's great to see that we can do what we're needing to do legislative-wise. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. In developing the draft plan, the first Corangamite Gender Equality Action Plan is the case for change has become abundantly clear. Council has a firm commitment to diversity and inclusion. It's worked through the council plan, through the community, Corangamite Community Vision 2040, and the public health and wellbeing plan and the workforce plan. So all of these are in place to make sure that gender equality for everybody is a key to our success. This organisation runs very well with the high performing people and with the responsive organisation that we are. And if we're able to reinforce gender equality and make sure that everybody is comfortable turning up to work and high performing, that will make this organisation so much more efficient and better. So I have no hesitation in supporting this plan.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillors, is there anything further? We'll put to a vote. All in favour? Carried. Item 9.2, councillor candidates at federal or state elections policy review. Mr. Plosser, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. This year is a double election year. We have the fast approaching federal election in May, followed by a state election in November. State and federal elections present the possibility of a currently serving councillor deciding to seek election as a Member of Parliament. This is not an uncommon occurrence, with currently serving councillors in other municipalities already having been pre-selected for candidates for the approaching federal election. In the time since the current version of the policy was adopted by Council, there has been a new Local Government Act passed by the state government, which provides a new legislative context for the policy to operate within. There's also been advice issued from the industry peak body, the Municipal Association of Victoria, regarding councillors standing for election at state or federal elections. Because of the approaching election and because of the legislative changes that have been made, it's appropriate that Council brings forward its review of the current councillor candidates at federal or state elections policy. Before you is a new policy written with reference to these documents, which is concerned primarily with ensuring Council maintains the highest levels of integrity and that it ensures strong governance practices. The recommendation is before you.
Thank you, Mr. Pozza. Councillors, recommendation to rescind the previous policy and adopt a new one. Someone like to move that, please? Councillor Vocals, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Canadian. Councillor Vocals.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I think this is rather procedural. It's probably a good time to announce that I accept the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. He's on our toes as usual. Councillor Canadian. Something you'd like to announce?
No, I haven't got an announcement, but I haven't got much more to say either, really, apart from that it's certainly the type of policy we do need, and a very important tool to uphold the good governance that we value so highly, and the interests of the community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Canadian. Councillors, there's no further announcements. I'll put that to a vote. All in favour? Carried. Item 9.3, the Events and Festivals Grant Program Policy Review. Back to you, Ms. Henley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report recommends the adoption of a revised Events and Festivals Grant Program policy dated March 2022. The purpose of the policy is to provide a framework for Council to support events and festivals with defined levels of support for festivals that occur within the Shire. The Events and Festivals Grant Program funding is available to community and not-for-profit groups only. Commercial organisations and individuals with an ABN may only seek in-kind support, not cash. In-kind support being a non-monetary form of funding that assists event organisers with covering the cost of using council resources and services, including hall hire or permit fees. Commercial organisations and individuals with an ABN may only apply for in-kind support to a maximum of $5,000. As part of this review, only minor changes are proposed to ensure that the policy is consistent and in line with other council policies and strategies. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Lingley. Councillors, someone happy to move that motion to adopt the new policy? Thank you, Councillor Macon. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hickey. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm quite happy to support this recommendation and support this policy review. It'd be great to see more events happening within the Shire and everyone getting out there and enjoying themselves. And I think it was in a media release that we all need to shake a tail feather or let our caboose loose or something. I don't know. Someone said that to me. But it'll be good just to get out there and have a bit of fun. And if anything we can do support these groups and organisations to get out there and get it done, well then that's all the more better that it is. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macon. Councillor Hickey.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, look, this Festivals and Grants program is a great initiative. Funding them up for $15,000 for non-for-profit organisations, $10,000 worth of funding and $5,000 worth of in-kind support. It's a really good kickstart along for festivals to start promoting their programs, and I'm only too happy to support the new policy.
Thank you, councillors. There's nothing further. Just a reminder to those listening at home that Crayfest is on at Campbell this Sunday, and the following weekend it's Tracks at Timboon, so lots of events and festivals happening in Corangamite Shire. So I shall put that to the vote. All in favour? Carried. Item 9.4, the Port Campbell Town Centre Revitalisation Project Update. Ms Lindley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide an update to Council and the community on the progress of the Port Campbell Town Centre Revitalisation Project. The report covers a brief summary of the project milestones and timeframes from the commencement of consultation in August 2017 through to the closing of tender submissions in February this year. The report describes the key features of the project, the funding obtained, the project charter and plans for implementation now that the funding has been secured, the project governance arrangements and the different ways in which councillors, businesses, other stakeholders and importantly community can get involved as we move towards the construction phase. In the consultation and engagement section of the report, there is a summary of the issues raised over time by community and businesses, as well as a description of the consultation processes undertaken so far. The officer's recommendation is for Council to note the report and to provide the ability for the CEO to oversee some alterations to the plan without having to go back to a full council meeting each time, and for changes to the delivery of the plan where those changes generally align with the approved project plan. For clarification, the approved project plan is the project plan submitted to both the federal and state government departments for funding, not the initial project brief. If approved, the recommendation will enable changes to be made to items like parking configurations and locations, or traffic flow and management, for example, not just the sequencing and timing of works. If approved, officers will formally approach Hanson, the architects and urban designers for the project, to seek some solutions and changes, particularly in relation to parking in Lord Street around the general store. Any modifications and changes will be, of course, communicated via the Community and Business Reference Group and the Project Control Group, so that councillors and the community can have confidence that it is the one set of documents and decisions being made and worked to, and that governance processes are robust and sound. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Ms Lindley, and I imagine if there's any changes, they'll be also put up on the website for this project.
That's correct.
Thank you. Councillors, his recommendation there to receive the update and authorise the CEO to amend the procurement plan. I would like to move that motion. Councillor Vogels, can I have a seconder? Councillor Macon, Councillor Vogels, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I move that we accept the officer's recommendation, receive the project update. I understand that the Port Campbell Town Centre revitalisation project is the largest single project the Corangamite Shire has undertaken in recent years. It is partly for this reason that I call for the report to be prepared, and I thank the CEO and Mr Neeson and Ms Lindley for moving quickly to get such a comprehensive report together in such a short amount of time. As I mentioned last month, I acknowledge the efforts of the community and the former council and officers in getting the project to where it is, and in particular the huge achievement of the council in getting the funding from both state and federal governments. Members of the community and business have been asking questions, and no doubt they will continue as the project moves into the construction phases. The best place to do this is via the Community and Business Reference Group for the project that I'm lucky enough now to chair. I also note in the report that unfortunately we did not receive any submissions to the tender that was out in December. While this is a bit disappointing, I can see a silver lining, as it does give us an opportunity to make some adjustments to the timing and order of the works, and to address some of the big concerns that keep being raised about the safety and parking. If we can get more parking into Lord Street, particularly around the general store and post office, and address the safety concerns around traffic movements and pedestrians, we will have come a long way. So I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation and see this project actually start. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Vogels. Councillor Macon.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have much further to add than what Councillor Vogels has said, but there will always be teething problems with any streetscape projects, and sometimes we just need to let the works happen and we work through them as they come along. Yes, there's been lots of interest from the local community regarding this streetscape, and I understand their concerns and everything else, but sometimes just we know what we're doing. We've done it before. I've done a few of them, and we've had plenty of consultation. So just let the process start the process. And if you do have any problems, please see Councillor Vogels or make yourself known to the councils. But yes, I think I'm more than happy to support this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macon. Councillors, this is certainly a massive infrastructure project. I think it's probably the biggest infrastructure project the council has ever dealt with in history, and I appreciate there are some concerns in the community action phase. Unfortunately, we didn't get a tender, so we'll look at different ways of delivering this project. The council does have the website up and running, Facebook page, and we will have a presence in Port Campbell while we're delivering this project. So there's lots of opportunities for members of the community who've got concerns to please, as Councillor Macon said, get in touch with us. We certainly are listening to what you're saying. We've had discussions with Hanson about dealing particularly with the parking around the general store. So that's hopefully some good news, and that we can make it work, which is obviously more important. So, councillors, is there anything further? This motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 9.5, a quick response grants allocation, March 2022, and not surprisingly, it's Ms. Lindley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am not the only officer, but hopefully the Cobden meeting is a way to showcase the things that happen in sustainable development, and it's very broad. It's very broad. So this report is to consider the March allocation of funds as part of the Quick Response Grants program. Applications for this program are considered as they are received and are assessed against criteria including alignment with the council plan, benefit to the community and eligible expenditure. The annual budget allocation for the program is $17,500. Applications have been received from the Camperdown Golf Club for the installation of Portaloo screening panels, the Lura Oval Committee of Management for the part cost of supplying a new goalpost padding, and the Simpsons Men's Shed for the purchase of a hammer drill. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Lindley. Councillors, I have someone to move this recommendation, please. Councillor Cole, second by Councillor Macon. Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've moved this a few times now, and I think it's an important part of the community help that we give. These things, they're only small, but they're important. Screenings for around the portaloos so you can get in and out without too much embarrassment. Checking the supplying of the new goalpost padding, which is a safety issue, and a hammer drill. They're not big things, but they're important things for the community, and these small amounts of money make a big difference in a lot of ways. So I'm more than happy to move all these sorts of things. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Councillor Macon.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. I'm more than happy to support these quick response grants, and as Councillor Cole said, they are only little bits of money, but they do make a big difference. But I do stress again, as we do I think every month, that there is still plenty of money sitting in every ward, and we are nearly getting to the pointy end of the season of giving out money. So I encourage every organisation out there to have a look and see what they need, and get your quick response grants in, because if we don't spend the money, we have to give it back, and I for one don't like giving money back, so I'd love to see it go out to the community. So please get your quick response grants in. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Macon. Any further councillors? Councillor Vocals.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I think last year I actually had to give money back because it hadn't been all spent, but it looks like I'm winning the race this year because I'm at the end of 1,000. So if anyone else is putting their hand out, looking for $500 towards a community piece of equipment, we'll see if we can get rid of it all this year. It was good to see the Simpson Men's Shed. I dropped in there a couple of weeks ago and told them to put their name in for something, and I'm glad they got a hammer drill and not another chair. If you're watching, guys, there was a lot of chairs getting used and a lot of yarns getting told, and there was only one person working, so I thought they needed more tools. Good on you guys, keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vocals. Councillor Hickey.
Yeah, and look, this is Mayor, this is always a good news item on the agenda. We do like to help our community groups wherever we possibly can. I still encourage everybody to, even if they think they may have a concept, to contact the officers and work through their plan and just see how they are going to be allocated with the money. So, as Councillor Vogels has rightly said, there's still some money, and Councillor Macon, there's still some money there to be allocated. So please take advantage of this funding and get your applications in.
Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Beard.
Okay, so I'm going to do a spruik. So everyone here in the South Central Ward, we've still got at least 4 applications that come in. I'm a bit like Councillor Macon. If you don't use it, you lose it. And we don't like having to hand that back into general revenue. So it's it'd be remiss of me if I didn't say it, seeing that we're here in Cobden tonight, that the community groups, if there's anyone out there affiliated, please get some applications in. As Councillor Hickey said, if you're not too sure if you're actually qualify or not, just give the council officers a call and have a chat with them about the application process. It's super easy, and as we have all said, it's the small little projects that often mean the most to our small community groups. So let's try and get that money spent. There's a challenge being put out now before the end of the financial year. So we'll see, Councillor Vocals, if we can beat you to the end.
I don't think so.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. So if we're all done speaking, I've got a mover and a seconder. I'll put to a vote all in favour. Carried. Councillors, is there any other business this evening? No. Mr. CEO, we don't have anybody in open forum. Has there been any questions raised?
Madam Mayor, there's been 2 sets of questions submitted by Troy Tagani and Peter Eunice. The questions both deal with the Port Campbell Town Centre project. As you would be aware, all councillors have been provided with a copy of both sets of questions. And my advice would be that Ms Lindley is probably best placed to answer these questions given their detailed technical nature.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Ms. Lindley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can provide some responses to both questions, in particular to Mr. Peter Eunice. As the first question, with regard to the first part of his question, as mentioned during the item on the council agenda, which was in relation to the Port Campbell Streetscape Town Centre Revitalisation Project, the resolution that has just been passed by council enables changes to be made to items like parking configurations and locations or traffic flow and management, for example, not just the sequencing and timing of works. Our officers will now formally approach Hanson the Architects to seek some solutions and changes, particularly with regard to parking in Lord Street, as we've already discussed. And also to seek greater clarity around all of the safety features, including the rationale behind the shared zones and the traffic management measures. As also mentioned, any modifications and changes will be communicated via the Community and Business Reference Group and the Project Control Group, and we encourage any member of the community who wishes to participate in the Community and Business Reference Group to jump on the website and register their interest. With regard to the second item that Mr. Eunice raised, the cost-benefit ratio and the economic impact analysis, which is referred to in the council report, this information was contained in a report prepared by SGS Economics in February 2021, which accompanied the funding applications that were made to the federal and state governments. We will make that report available to the Community and Business Reference Group as background information in coming days. With regard to the question by questions from Mr. Tatungi, as also discussed during the meeting, the concerns raised throughout the project have been captured, and as we enter this next phase for the delivery of the project, matters such as the adequacy of parking to access businesses, the functionality of Lord Street, traffic flow and pedestrian safety will of course be further examined. Officers will contact the architects and seek explanations for a range of features in the design, as I've previously mentioned. And again, the Community and Business Reference Group will continue to provide the avenue for community and businesses to raise concerns going forward. And I would encourage Mr. Tatungi to avail himself of that link. Any modifications and changes will of course be communicated back to that group and to the Project Control Group and to councillors so that we are all working off the one set of documents and plans. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Lindley. That's all the items, Mr. CEO, in open forum. So we have a confidential item to discuss now, councillors. So can I call for motion to suspend standing orders? Councillor Macon, seconded by Councillor Vocals. All in favour? Carried. And before I do finish tonight's recording, live streaming and the formal part of the meeting, I'd just like to acknowledge Mr. David Ray, our Director of Corporate Community Services, we regretfully accepted David's resignation a couple of weeks ago. David has been with Corangamite Shire now for 10 years and is taking up a similar position in Moyne on the 8th of April. So corporate community services covers a broad range of topics. There's finance, HR, IT, which I know is your love, Mr. Ray, and community services, and our loss is certainly Moyne's gain. We've certainly valued your sound financial advice. You've kept us on the straight and narrow, just when we think we might stray off a little bit. You bring us back to reality very quickly, and I think our former councillor, Bev MacArthur, thought you were the best finance officer in the state, and had you lined up for state treasurer at one stage. You were so effective. So we thank you for your service to Corangamite Shire, and we certainly wish you all the very best in your new role.
Yeah.
And with that, I'll say good evening to those watching at home, and councillors will resume in confidential items in just a moment or so. Good evening.